anxious attachment style, how to heal it. Hello, ladies, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Alex Cormont, and I'm your relationship expert. But today, I am not by myself. I have the pleasure to meet with Valerie Greene. She's an amazing love and relationship expert, and she knows exactly what the topic will be today. Hello, Valerie. How are you doing today?
Hi, Alex. I'm awesome. It's so awesome to be here. I just love speaking about this topic and helping lots of women to feel more secure.
I know that you're really pro. I was watching some of your content and I told myself, okay, I want this lady on my YouTube channel because you will
Mhm.
help my community. So you're basically someone that is helping a lot of women. Do you want to talk a little bit about who you are, what you have done so far? Because I feel it's really important to give a little bit of your big, huge background.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I've been coaching since 2005. And I basically have three types of people that I coach. I coach single women to help them to attract the right partner. And I also coach women that are in a committed relationship. Either he's pulling away and acting distant, or you're fighting all the time and you want to learn how to have that deep emotional connection that you had in the beginning and inspire him to be loving like he was in the beginning. And I do also work with couples. A lot of times I just work with the woman because a lot of times the woman is the one who is more willing. But when the man, sometimes I just work with men too. It's not necessarily who I market to, but I love working with both men and women to just create this deep emotional bond. And I love using both a emotional healing approach, but then also a really practical approach. Like, here's what you do in order to, to inspire the person that you want to inspire, whether that's a man or a woman. Of course, I have no judgment, but I mostly work with heterosexual women to be able to experience that inner security and confidence within themselves, so that they know inside themselves how to intuitively attract the man that they want. I don't give like cookie cutter formulas. It's
Yeah.
really about, tuning into who you are, who the unique person is, and finding that alignment.
I really love your ideas and your philosophy because love is not a perfect formula. It's something that we have to find within ourselves. And I love the fact that you say that women are more willing to change because basically I've seen it in my practice also because I coach men and women and I just feel that women were more receptive. And
Yeah, in general. I mean, I don't like to pigeonhole. I also do
no, we don't
working
want
with
to say
men.
that, but basically in general. So I have to say that I'm a man, and
Yes, of course.
I have to say that, I have to be honest with also the ladies that are listening to this video because you are willing to change, and this is just the most important thing with when you're working with a coach. Coming to the US and talking with you, I learned about anxious attachment style. It's not something that we talk in French. We have some different maybe words. So I would like you to help us define this expression. What is anxious attachment style? How do you know if you have it?
Yes, and that's an important question because it has been more of a buzzword lately. And so, just in summary, attachment research has been going on since the 1950s, I believe, and it started out studying how parents form a secure bond with their infant child. But what they found at the latter part of the 20th century is that the same part of the brain, the attachment system in your brain, also maps onto how you're going to attach in a healthy way to, and how you're going to bond in a healthy way to your romantic partner as an adult. And so they actually have four attachment styles that they've categorized.
Mhm.
The most important one that we're moving towards is called secure. And only about 50% of the population have a secure attachment style. And what that means is that we are comfortable forming a healthy, interdependent, long-lasting relationship. We're comfortable having, interdependence means that we don't need another person to survive, but we choose to healthfully depend on them to meet our emotional needs and also provide. It's easy to create a secure bond. It's easy to be close. It's easy to ask for what you want in a inviting way. You trust that the other person cares and will be available for you if you ask. You're able to comfort and soothe each other when you're in need of that. You provide that secure base for each other, but then you're also happy to just have fun together and celebrate life, you know, and you trust that the other person really has your back, and you're able to have someone in your life who you feel comfortable having their back. That's what a secure attachment is. And so about 20% of the population has an anxious attachment style. Okay. And what that means is that, and it usually came from as a child that your parents were probably loving, because otherwise, like an avoidant attachment style, which is about 25% of the population, it comes from where parents were like, I'm not going to say neglectful because I don't want to label people, but that your parents just had the belief that everyone should be self-sufficient and shouldn't have needs, you know, and be more independent.
And avoiding, is that two types of, okay, that's really, so
yeah, those are the two main types of a what's called an insecure attachment style. So there's secure and then there's insecure. And insecure can either be anxious or avoidant. And then there is a third style of insecure that's more ambivalent, which it tends to be caused by more of an abusive background. So I'm not going to talk about that on this video, but anxious and avoidant are pretty much the two main types of insecure attachment. And the interesting thing is they tend to be attracted to each other. If you're anxious, you tend to be attracted to men that are avoidant. And it's because we learned what love was through how our parents treated us as a child. And so if your parents were kind of inconsistent in their ability to meet your emotional needs, like to give you comfort and soothing when you're upset, you know, to really be there when you needed them, to have your back, to validate your emotions and teach you that your needs are important. If they were kind of inconsistent with that, then what happens as a child is that we kind of develop the belief that we can't count on others. They might not be there for us. And we tend to feel anxious about that. And we tend to think that there's something that we have to do in order to earn the other person's love, in order to get their attention, in order to get their approval. And so how that manifests in an adult relationship is basically like you know, I'm not a psychologist, obviously, so I can't say, you know, if you have these characteristics, you definitely have an anxious attachment style, but here are the indicators that are most prevalent. So number one is that when you develop feelings for someone, you tend to get preoccupied with the relationship. Like anxious attachment is also called preoccupied attachment. So what that means is it takes over your life. Like you obsess about it. You have these ruminating thoughts in your head. Yeah. You know, you worry about why he hasn't called. You check your phone all the time to see if he's texted back. And if not, then you usually will send, you know, like if he said he would and he didn't, then you might fire off all these angry triggered messages to him, you know, like what happened, and you said you'd be available and what's going on. And then if he still doesn't respond, a lot of times what happens with people with anxious attachment is that because they didn't necessarily learn that feelings are okay, they don't want to really share their feelings to rock the boat. So immediately they'll go to anger and blaming. And, you know, where were you when you said you'd call, and you don't care about me? And, you know, this unconscious manipulation that isn't conscious. I mean, you know, anxious attachment style people are actually very loving and caring, and they want a close relationship. So it's not coming out of a sense of them being manipulative people, but because they haven't learned how to really self-soothe, and usually they have an underlying belief that their feelings are not valid. So instead of being able to self-soothe, which I'll talk about in the healing portion of the video, immediately they jump to kind of anger or manipulative behaviors, like paying attention to how long ago it was that he texted and waiting just that amount of time to text him back, like playing these manipulative games, or like it's trying to make him jealous because you want to, you know, talk about someone else that flirted with you today, because what you're really looking for is for him to feel like, oh my God, I might lose her. Let me come back. Let me be even closer. But if it comes out in this manipulative way, it actually pushes him away because it comes out as being insecure. And usually anxious attachment style women are accused of being needy and demanding. And this applies whether or not you're single or whether you're in a relationship, if you're married, a lot of times it looks like unconsciously you'll pick fights. Like you're wondering, why do I get upset about this little thing? Like, why am I just like blowing up about the fact that he loaded the dishwasher the wrong way, you know, and sort of judging themselves for doing that, because at the core, you know, you're a really loving person, but it's because he's been pulling away and he's not giving you enough attention and affection. And if you ask for it from a needy place, then it's going to push him away more. And it causes this cycle where the more you pursue him, the more he pulls away, and the more he pulls away, the more you pursue him. And it's this anxious avoidant dance that I think is the most prominent negative cycle that couples get caught in.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I'm seeing this a lot. And I didn't really know about this style of attachment or behavior. So my question is, in France, we use a lot the expression of being emotionally dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see, like, is it the same, like anxious attachment style and being codependent? Is it the same? Is it different words to express different type of things, but they're close? So I don't know if it's easy for you to respond, because that's, I feel, a difficult question, but
oh yeah, it's okay.
Okay, that's perfect.
I mean, I like, one of the things I didn't say in the beginning is, I mean, the positive feedback my clients give me a lot is that, you know, in their opinion, not in mine, because I always see the things that I still want to learn, but in their opinion, I've studied everything. So I'm easy to, like, I find it easy to integrate different things together. So, I mean, anxious attachment and codependence are not the same thing, but there's a lot of overlap.
Okay.
Because codependent people basically also disown their own needs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just focused on the other person. And so they tend to be attracted to more like a narcissistic type, or they can be attracted to avoidance. But whereas anxious and avoidant are kind of at different ends of the insecure attachment continuum,
Mm-hmm.
codependent and narcissist are on the, you know, opposite ends of the, I'll say selfish and selfless continuum, if that makes sense. So there is a lot of overlap.
Okay. So how can we, so I've coached so many women, and I know that now they are either codependent or anxious attachment style. How can we heal from this? How can we find the inner power?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I love that question. It really is about inner power.
Yeah.
And inner security. And so there's both inner work and outer work with that. Because I look at all of this as kind of like a paradox, meaning that on the one hand, we don't need anyone else to survive. That's being healthfully independent. On the other hand, that's not the highest level of evolution in relationships, is not to be independent, right? If we choose to be in a relationship, we want what's called interdependence, like I talked about in the beginning, which means we choose to rely on this other person to meet our emotional needs. But the biggest mindset shift with anxious attachment style people is that the need doesn't have to be met in this moment by the other person. That's the difference between being needy and having needs, you know, because we all have needs. Like it's just not as satisfying to give ourselves affection, right? Or, you know, to give ourselves attention, or to give ourselves, you know, loving hugs, and, you know, to feel like I have my own back. Like that's just not as satisfying as somebody else having our back, right? And so that's the paradox, is that we do have these needs, but the difference between anxious and secure attachment is that anxious attachment feels like, if I don't get this need met right now, then it's horrible and I have to get it. And whereas that's the anxiety, right? Whereas security comes from recognizing that other people do care about my needs and they are available to me if I approach him in the right way. And until then, I can meet my own needs right now on the inside. So that's the inner work. And that's what I teach women to do. And there's just different modalities that I teach that fall under the category of self-soothing. And that's kind of the modality here, is self-soothing. And so what does that mean? There's two aspects of self-soothing that I'll talk about. And number one is reprogramming your limiting beliefs. And some of them are conscious and some of them are unconscious. And so basically just briefly, what happens as a child of an anxiously attached child, is that generally, because the beliefs are created when we were children, and then we're still acting out of them. So what happens, like, let's say, your parents worked all the time and they weren't consistently available. And so your experience was sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. And that's the primary experience of people that are anxiously attached.
Yeah.
And so, but as children, we can't understand that, right? All we know is that they're not always available. And so we make false meaning out of that, because a child isn't able, like, we're talking about like a 2-3-year-old child, like, they're not able to understand that the parent is actually there for them, quality over quantity, like, so they make it mean something that is wrong with them. I don't deserve it. Like, that's usually what we do. And the reason we do that is because as children, we have two choices. We can believe that our parents are not giving us what we need. And if we believe that, then that's too scary, because we might die, because like a 3-year-old really is dependent on their parents for survival. Yeah. Or we could believe there's something wrong with us that actually feels safer. And then we act out of that belief for the rest of our lives because it's unconscious. And so how that manifests in a relationship is if we believe people aren't really there for us, that usually means that we keep ourselves guarded. Like a guy will try to get to know us and, oh, well, he's not really available, so I won't really tell him anything too deep, and I'll kind of keep it superficial and fun. Or we might believe that we're not wanted. And then the way we act, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if I believe that I'm not wanted, I might try to turn myself into who the guy wants me to be. And, like, he wants me to be fun and playful and do things for him and prove that I'm worth it. And a quality guy is not going to be attracted to that, because he's going to smell our inauthenticity, like we're not really being ourselves. And so then he's not going to want us. But I want to highlight here that it's not that belief is true. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because we're showing up out of that belief. And so if the belief is right there on the surface, then there's cognitive ways of reprogramming it, which is basically just, asking yourself to act as if I did believe he was available, then what would I do differently? But that's the cognitive work. And I think that's where a lot of coaching stops. And I think that work is really effective when it is. And I like to go deeper, because my observation is a lot of times, the true and the research shows is that the decisions we're making are actually unconscious. Like our body already decided what we're going to do before our mind, did. And so I teach a lot of emotional healing modalities that actually help to create basically a healthy version of an inner mother and inner father inside of us that can then meet our own emotional needs on the inside. Because even if, let's say, you have that belief, I'm not wanted, and you identify that belief, there is, and I like to do a lot of inner parts work modalities, and probably most people are familiar with the inner child work, that like we have a part of us that is vulnerable. And we don't actually have to call it the inner child, but what I guide my clients to do is, and I close my eyes when I go into it, as you can see, is to be able to identify, like, where does the anxiety live in you as a sensation in your body? And because emotions actually are physical. And so I guide them in how to be with that as a part of you. And like, and you can actually, I know this seems strange, but you can actually ask that sensation in your body, how old is it? Because if you get an intuitive answer, usually it is the age of a child. And so then you can be with that part of you the way that you would be with a child at that age. So like, if a 3-year-old came up to you and said, I'm not wanted, you wouldn't have an intellectual conversation with her and be like, what are you talking about? Of course you are. Like you would pick her up and you would hold her close to you and you'd say, oh, honey, you would stroke her hair and go, oh, honey, tell me why you feel that way. And, of course you're wanted and you're beautiful, but you would actually also pay attention to how she takes it in, right? So it's like actually doing the inner parts work so that you can see what that part of you needs in order to feel completely loved and accepted by you. And then you're providing the emotional needs that weren't met consistently when you're a child. And that's an intuitive process that I guide people through. And so that's the inner work, is how to identify your feelings and needs and then get those needs met in a healthy way. So some of them you can give to yourself, like comfort and soothing and love and acceptance and attention. Those things you can give to yourself. But then there's also things that you can get from other people. And that's the outer work, is learning how to identify what needs need to be met by other people. Like, let's say it's attention. And it doesn't make sense. You know, I want to hear your opinion on this, but I don't feel like it is helpful to ask a man for attention. You know, it's just not inspiring, right?
Yeah, it's really not. It's really not. I feel this is something that a man needs to give by himself. When you ask for it, it will think that you're harassing him. And if
Exactly.
you are looking for something that is your right and that it will be helpful for you, I feel that a man needs to understand the why. If you ask for
Exactly.
attention, he will not give it to you. But if you say, okay, I need attention because of, that
Yeah,
will
yeah,
help.
yeah. I
And
totally agree. I totally agree. And that's the outer work, is learning the right communication.
yeah, I feel this is something very important. When you are talking about the inner work, there is a lot of things that you were, not a lot, but some of them, like finding within ourselves and take a good breath. I used to learn this with the NLP practitioner. So I did some
Mm-hmm.
NLP training in France, in the US. And I want to know, do you use NLP in your own practice when you do one-on-one coaching?
I do. Yeah, I love NLP.
Yeah, it's
I
really
think
powerful.
that, like, and NLP has its own parts work patterns in it as well. I basically just kind of synergize. I try to find out what really works for the client, you know, like whether they're more intellectual, whether they're more feeling oriented, whether they're more visual. And then I just use whatever modalities work for them.
This is really powerful. So, you know, when I listen to you, I feel that it's something that we all have to do. We all have some, how we say, bad experience as a child, even if it's on just our own thoughts, negative, and our parents was loving. So I just remember my two parents were amazing. And so, but my father was an entrepreneur, so I didn't see him a lot. So that creates some wounds that I need to heal, and I heal it. So I feel that this is something that people need to do on one-on-one coaching. And I know that you're still coaching a lot. It was funny, before we do this interview, we talked last week, and we talked about the fact that you coached a lot, even after like 20 years of experience. So
Yeah,
can
I
you
love
talk a
it.
little bit about your process? What, for the ladies that will listen to you and wants to move forward, what would be the best options to work with you and to heal the anxious attachment style?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I talked a lot now about the inner work, and then of course there's the outer work. And the outer work is learning the right communication skills.
Yeah.
And because it is helpful to ask, let's say, good girlfriends for attention, but not just like, hey, can you give me more attention? I mean, I think everyone has to understand the why. You know, but like, you can be a lot more vulnerable with your girlfriends. And I do want to say the outer work is different whether you're single or whether you're in a committed relationship. Because if you're in a committed relationship, then you can be a lot more vulnerable with the guy. And I don't want to imply that you can't be vulnerable with somebody that you're just dating. It's just that there's an art to that.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't
Sometimes.
have any hard and fast rules. It's just like, it's about accessing your intuition around where is the alignment between, you know, where you're at and where he's at, and communicating from that place. So I mean, I could talk for another, you know, hour about that. But of course, that's what a lot of clients come to me for, is to learn the healthy communication skills. And I do think that that's a difference between coaching and therapy, because obviously therapy is also about healing. And so coaching is about teaching skills. And I teach healing skills to do the inner work, of course. And then I also teach a lot of skills in terms of how to have that healthy communication with the guy, and then also how to inspire him to a deeper level of commitment. And
Exciting.
you know, whether you're single or married, because a lot of people are married and they have one foot out the door, you know, so it's about like really learning how to create that deeper emotional connection with where you are and he is now. And the paradigm of that is collaboration, right? Like really recognizing that you have your own feelings and needs, he has his own feelings and needs, and learning how to really hold that higher vision that you can have both. And because I like to look at it as that the man is the logistical leader of the relationship and the woman is the emotional leader. Like it's your responsibility to set the emotional tone. And so that means that you have the opportunity to do that inside yourself, to really ground yourself in this secure vision for what's possible, and then to communicate to that to him in a way that occurs to him as an opportunity, rather than complaining about what's not happening, like really enrolling him in this vision of what's possible and how that would feel and what that would provide for you, because men are providers. So like a lot of times that's just the whole paradigm that I use when I work with clients.
Amazing. Do you work also with men, or do you specialize with women? How does it work?
I do work with men. I like working with men. It's, it's funny. It's like in marketing, you're supposed to pick a niche, right? And I already have 3 niches. So it's like, I just, I don't market to men, but I always wind up having a couple of men in my practice because I love people, I don't really distinguish between men and women. People are people. And at the same time, I do think that like all truths are paradoxes. And that like tuning into, if you're a woman and your feminine energy is who you are at your core, then you want a masculine energy man. And then it makes sense to talk about masculine energy and feminine energy. But I think that really what I do is to help people tune into what's authentic for them. I don't like to pigeonhole people.
I think that the most important thing to adapt yourself to your clients, to the people you help. So can you talk a little bit about your program? How does it work if we want to work with you? I think that there is a free first session. There is also free gift that I ask you to also talk about my community, because they can learn a lot about anxious attachment style, but not just this, like really the inner work to do by themselves.
Yes, exactly. And so I do develop custom programs for people still. And because I like that, I like serving people at whatever level works for them. And so I do offer a free 90-minute session that I call a relationship breakthrough session. And the purpose of that is to develop that custom program. And so that's why it's 90 minutes, because I like to hear what it is that your story is and what it is that your vision is, like, what do you really want? And then, what work have you done already? So we're not reinventing the wheel. And then we create a custom plan together. And, and that's for people who are looking for ongoing coaching. And my programs last anywhere between a month and a year, really. I help people over the course of time. Some people I've been working with for 10 years, but then not consistently, like for 6-month intervals during that time, because they have a specific challenge, or let's say we get a couple sessions. And so I just really enjoy providing people with the level of support that really helps them to then not need me anymore. Like that's always the goal.
Yeah, but I feel that coaching, it's like a lifetime. It's something that we need, and there's no end, because we can work on relationship, then on self-confidence, then on professional aspect. I've seen people in France or even in the world asking me questions about how can I find a work that I like. So I feel that when you find a good coach, someone that you relate in, you can work with them during years and years and years. And this is something very important. So I will include all the links right below, ladies. It's your time for you to just work on yourself. If you really want to heal your anxious attachment style, or if you want to just see the world differently and the love differently, I will encourage you to work with Valerie, because she is really good and she will be able to help you. One last word about the free gifts that you created. I know that there is for single, relationship. If you can tell us a little bit about these gifts, and I will include the link. So just take everything, read it, and enjoy it.
Yes, thank you so much. I have 3 free gifts depending on what type of relationship you're in. So I have one free ebook for single women that's called the Magnetic Dating Formula. And that's basically just like how to find a man that is compatible with you. And the inner work around that. And then I have another free gift for women in relationship. And that is called Manifest Lasting Love. It's a free ebook.
I like
And
it.
it's basically, yeah, I like the manifest. And that's basically, I give 5 steps to share your feelings and desires with a man in an inspiring way. I do want to say, if you're dating a man with a avoidant attachment style, it's a little bit different. I haven't developed a free ebook about that, but I'm sure that's in my future. But this works with almost all men. It's basically just like how to share your feelings and desires in an inspiring way. The way I would adapt it for avoidant attachment men, just really quickly, is that avoidant attachment men don't really like hearing unpleasant feelings, because they're not really feeling their own. So for them, it's just really about talking about your desires in an inspiring way, you know, if that makes sense. Because really all men like to be inspired by a woman's desires and what that desire provides for them. Yeah. So that's what that ebook is about. And then the third free gift is that I have a free video training called 3 Steps to Stop Fighting and Start Connecting. And that's for couples that are caught in a cycle of conflict and how to step out of it.
So there is gifts for everyone. I love it. Okay, so I will include the link just right below. If you have any question, ladies, it's time for you to ask us. Valerie, I will ask you to be with me on the comments just right below. Share a like to this video. That's something very important. And after that, I would just encourage you to click the link below, get the coaching session, get the free gifts, and start working on yourself, because you deserve to be happy. I really love the fact that we tackled today the fact that there is people that are anxious attachment style, and there is also the avoiding attachment style, or it is the avoiding behavior. So it helps you to understand that sometimes it's not a good idea to chase a man. He needs some space, and you need to work on yourself to maintain a beautiful relationship. Valerie, do you want to share the last word? I always ask my invitee to conclude the video, share the last words. What do we want to share to my community, to the ladies that will listen to this video? And I want to know if it's possible to heal the anxious attachment style.
Yeah, people with an anxious attachment style usually are very sweet and open-hearted. They really recognize that a loving relationship is important, and that's why you become preoccupied with it, you know. And I want to validate you for that, because a loving relationship is important, you know. And I want to say that having an anxious attachment style doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's actually not a pathology. That's why it's just about learning skills. You know, it doesn't mean that you have a mental illness or something. I wanted to say that. It means that you have the opportunity to develop that sense of inner security, so that the relationship that you do attract, whether it's someone you haven't met with or someone that you're already with, that'll feel really secure for both of you, and that'll be a secure base for you to thrive and be happy and have tons of fun and passion and playfulness. And that is totally possible. I have worked with a lot of women and men to help heal anxious attachment and feel more secure. And when they do heal, it's like the outer matches the inner, and so then they do attract this loving relationship that just feels really nourishing to both people, and that is what you deserve.
Thank you so much for these words, because they are really beautiful. And this is exactly what I will just say from our from our interview, and just also from this relationship that we have now as relationship expert. It's really, today we can have the happiness that we want. Mm-hmm. It's not just having a man, because most of the time you will just give everything, but you will lose yourself. Yep. You need to really, really, really find this happiness with this stable relationship, will help you grow as a person. So this is like why it's really important to heal, and so do the work within yourself, but also with the people around you. So thank you so much, Valerie. I really appreciate your time, the fact that you came on this YouTube channel. And so ladies, it's time for you to just leave a comment and go get your free gift, because this can change your love life. Thank you so much, Valerie.
Yay, it's just been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed connecting with you. So
thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye, ladies.
Bye.